Good evening, you're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Financial Secretary Paul Chan contracts COVID, raising doubts whether he'll attend a key conference. Public barbecue pits reopen next week, while restaurants can operate at all hours. And home prices in Hong Kong dropped to a nearly 4-year low. Doubts have surfaced whether Financial Secretary Paul Chan will be able to attend Hong Kong's much-heralded investment summit after he contracted COVID. Chan was on the last day of his visit to Saudi Arabia when he became the city's highest-ranking official to test positive. Janice Low reports.
Paul Chan set off for Saudi Arabia and Bahrain last Saturday on a mission to strengthen trade and investment ties between Hong Kong and the oil-rich states. The financial secretary was scheduled to leave for home today, but tested positive for COVID on his final day in Riyadh. He was forced to cancel the rest of his itinerary in the Saudi capital and will stay there for a short while. During their tour, Chan and his delegation met officials and business leaders in the two Middle Eastern countries. In Riyadh, Chan spoke at an investment forum where he met the Chinese ambassador to Saudi Arabia. They discussed Chinese-Saudi relations and economic prospects in the kingdom. Chan and his team were seen maskless on several occasions. Hong Kong has scrapped the pre-departure PCR test. Instead, those coming to the city have to present a negative rapid antigen test conducted within 24 hours before the flight. With Chan contracting COVID, his presence at Hong Kong's Showcase Investment Forum next week is in doubt. The financial secretary is scheduled to deliver a keynote speech at the Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit. The event, which starts next Tuesday, will be attended by about 200 of the world's financial elite. It's intended to signal that Hong Kong is back on the road to recovery after COVID. Chan is the highest-ranking government official to contract the virus. In his absence, his deputy, Michael Wong, is acting financial secretary. Janice Low, HKIBC.
A senior health official has refused to comment on Paul Chan's situation, but stressed Hong Kong's requirement for arrivals.
Actually, people coming back to Hong Kong or going to Hong Kong have to have a RAT or rapid antigen test negative before they can actually get onto the flight. It applies to all individuals when they actually come back to Hong Kong or come to Hong Kong visit us. So I would say this is actually the policy.
Public barbecue pits will reopen next Thursday, while there will be no more restrictions on the operating hours of restaurants and bars. The latest round of relaxations was announced despite a 5% increase in the city's COVID cases in the past week. Janice Low reports.
Starting next Thursday, government barbecue sites will reopen after being closed for over 2 years. There will be no restrictions on operating hours for restaurants and bars. Currently, restaurants have to close at midnight, while bars and pubs shut at 2 a.m. But the maximum of 12 patrons per table and 6 for bars and pubs will remain in force. People will be allowed to remove their mask when taking photos on stage, during banquets or at various venues, including religious, sports, and hotels. However, officials made it clear that inbound quarantine rules, including the 0+3 arrangement, will remain. This comes as imported cases increased by 10% in the past week. Hong Kong today recorded 6,062 cases, of which 375 were imported. The daily average rose by 5% over the past week. Gladys Kwan from the hospital authority revealed that a 20-month-old girl who tested positive is in critical situation and intubated. The toddler, who's had 2 jabs, also contracted a nose virus and developed symptoms of croup. Hospitals admitted 227 more COVID patients, taking the tally to 1,926, while another 8 people died from the virus. Janice Low, HKIBC.
A 64-year-old decorator has been jailed for 4 years and 3 months for taking part in the Yunlong mob attack in 2019. His claim that the assault was not aimed at the government was dismissed as a mitigating factor. Macy Mock reports.
Cheng Wai-ming was driven to West Kowloon Magistracy, where he was sentenced to 4 years and 3 months in jail for his role in the Yunlong mob attack 3 years ago. The 64-year-old decorator was convicted last month of rioting and conspiracy to wound in Yunlong Station on July 21, 2019, during the height of the social unrest. During sentencing, Deputy District Judge Newman Wong said Cheng took part in the riot for around 8 minutes. He and others wearing white attacked 3 people in the station at around 11 p.m. Cheng was armed with a cane. While leaving the station, the defendant signaled to others clad in white to go to the MTR platform. The judge said this showed Cheng had actively participated in the riot but was not the leader. During mitigation, Wong heard that the attack was not aimed at the government. But he did not accept the claim as a reason for mitigation, saying whether the government was targeted was not the court's main concern. The starting point for the jail term was 4.5 years, but 3 months were deducted because of Cheng's age. Before the court convened, the judge and lawyers were notified that the defendant was unfit to attend the hearing because he contracted COVID. But it turned out to be an administrative error from correctional services officers, and he showed up eventually. So far, 8 people among the white-clad group have been convicted for rioting. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Home prices in Hong Kong have fallen to their lowest level in nearly 4 years. Analysts expect the downward trend in one of the world's least affordable markets to continue amid weak buying sentiment and rising mortgages. Private home prices in the city have declined for the 4th straight month on weak market sentiment. According to the Rating and Valuation Department's price index, homes were 2% cheaper last month than in August. September's property price index stood at 362.1, the lowest since January 2019. For the first 9 months of this year, prices fell 8.1%, with the drop picking up pace in the second half. The biggest impact was on small to medium-sized units. Prices for flats ranging from 40 square meters to 69.9 square meters fell 2.2%. They cost 6% less in September after sliding for 5 consecutive months. Some analysts said the downward trend may continue for 1 or 2 years. Property consultant Joseph Zhang described the stamp duty refund proposed by Chief Executive John Lee in his policy address to attract foreign talent as a petty favor. Zhang, who's the chairman of JLL Hong Kong, said the offer won't do much for the property market given the pessimistic economic outlook and geopolitical uncertainties. Derek Chan, head of research at property agency Ricard Properties, said a 0+0 system for inbound travelers will stimulate the economy and drive up the market. But under the current situation, he expects home prices to fall by a further 3% in the 4th quarter. Meanwhile, the 1-month HIBOR, to which mortgage rates are linked, has jumped to a 14-year high of 3.08% after rising for 12 days in a row. With borrowing costs climbing, prospective homebuyers may have to think twice. A wanted woman has been arrested for furious driving after leading police on a 12-kilometer chase. A 52-year-old was asked to pull over on the West Kowloon corridor after her vehicle license was found to have expired. But she sped away, and dashcam footage showed her making a U-turn on a one-way carriageway to evade arrest. The pursuit ended when the woman rammed into several vehicles on Tuen Mun Road near Yau Kom Town, having driven in the wrong direction for 3 kilometers. She was subdued by officers and was found to be wanted for drug trafficking and false instrument charges. 2 other drivers sustained minor injuries. President Xi Jinping says he's ready to work with the United States. This comes ahead of a possible face-to-face meeting with his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden next month. Winnie Wong reports.
Watchers of bilateral relations kept a close eye on an annual gala dinner in New York last night. The event, hosted by the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, typically offers a glimpse of President Xi Jinping's views on his relationship with Washington. A letter penned by Xi was read out by Xu Xueyuan, China's deputy chief of mission in Washington.
The world today is neither tranquil nor stable. China and the United States are 2 major countries. Closer communication and cooperation between us will help bring greater stability and certainty to the world and promote world peace and development. China stands ready to work with the United States to find the right way to get along with each other in the new era on the basis of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation.
It's an indication of an olive branch amid soaring tensions between the 2 countries over issues such as trade and Taiwan. Speaking to his defense chiefs at the White House, U.S. President Joe Biden carefully echoed that sentiment.
We also have to to responsibly manage an increasingly intense competition with China. You know, we have to maintain our military advantage by making clear that we do not seek conflict.
The development comes ahead of a possible meeting between Xi and Biden at the G20 summit in Bali next month. It would be their first face-to-face encounter since Biden became president. Winnie Wong, HKIBC.
Weakening consumer sentiment on the mainland has been reflected by a slump in smartphone purchases. Shipments in the world's largest smartphone market plunged 11% in the 3rd quarter. Manufacturers sold 70 million units, almost 9 million fewer than a year ago. The 4 top local brands headed by Vivo reported that shipments fell as much as 27%. Apple bucked the trend, jumping 36% on demand for the iPhone 14 Pro. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed up 110 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent was up $1.60, Trucker Fund up 10 cents. JD.com up $8.70, Wuxi Biologics down 25 cents. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euros at 7.87, pounds at 9.08, and Australian dollar at 5.04. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is currently down 0 points. Citigroup Chief Executive Jane Fraser has contracted COVID and will skip the Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit in Hong Kong. Fraser was one of 4 female financial heavyweights set to attend the forum next week. She was previously scheduled to join a panel discussion on sustainable finance. The U.S. Investment Bank confirmed that Fraser will not be attending, but said she hopes to visit Hong Kong in the future. On to the weather now. Staying fine and dry tomorrow and at the weekend. Expect temperatures of 22 to 29 degrees tomorrow. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Good night.